Welcome to Orangeburg, where on July 26, 2021, Officer David Lance Dukes turned a regular day into a scene straight out of a cop comedy, minus the laughter. Our unsuspecting heroes, Clarence Gaillard, a 58-year-old with a disability, and his cousin, Mario Julian, just chilling outside a townhouse. Little did they know they were about to star in an episode of Dukes of Hazzard's Orangeburg Edition. On this fateful summer day, Orangeburg's own Officer David Lance Dukes decided to turn a routine call into an audition for an action movie, the kind that goes straight to DVD. The stage was set at a local townhouse, with our unwitting stars, Clarence Gaillard, sporting the hard-earned badge of disability at 58, and his sidekick cousin, Mario Julian. The drama unfolded with a report of a man, allegedly with a gun, playing knock-knock jokes on a townhouse door. Officer Dukes, perhaps imagining himself in a high-stakes cop drama, arrived on the scene with his gun drawn, ready for action.
Berg, get on the ground! Get on the ground! Get on the ground right here! Get on the ground! You, Burgundy shirt, get on the ground! Over here! On the ground! On the ground! Get on the ground! Do you not listen? Get on the ground!
His entrance was less heroic detective and more overzealous sheriff in a Wild West show. With the flair of a seasoned performer, he ordered Mr. Gaillard and Mr. Julian to hit the deck. The plot twist? There was no gun, just a confused Mr. Gaillard trying to make sense of the sudden spotlight, and Mr. Julian probably wondering if he'd accidentally walked onto a movie set. Officer Dukes, determined to stick to his guns, literally seemed to miss the memo that his role was public servant and not stunt coordinator. As our protagonists tried to comply, the scene was set for a series of events that would make even a seasoned scriptwriter facepalm. Now, let's zoom in on the spectacle that Officer Dukes orchestrated. Picture it. A quiet Orangeburg day suddenly transforms into an overblown episode of Cops, the Misguided Edition. Officer Dukes, perhaps mistaking the townhouse for a set of an action thriller, swoops in, weapon drawn, ready to face the non-existent danger head-on. His approach to law enforcement? Think less serve and protect, more leap and suspect.
You're not listening, dude. Hey, you got a gun on you, man?
No, I ain't got no gun.
All right,
I
I'm
don't
just
want
asking.
no gun. I don't
Turn
want
back over. Hold on, you watch him say.
There stand our baffled duo, Clarence Gaillard and Mario Julian, probably wondering if they'd accidentally stumbled into a police training exercise. Officer Dukes, determined to make his mark, bellows commands as if he's leading a cavalry charge rather than addressing a disabled man and his cousin.
Yep.
Listen.
Yep, they slammed my head
Listen.
down on the cement. Yep.
Go back inside. Go back in the house. Go back in the house. Ain't nobody talking to you.
I got head drummer.
Go back in the house.
Yep. Y'all bust my head down. Yeah, I've been in an accident. Yep. Y'all bust my head down. You threw me down.
I sure did.
And
You wasn't listening.
Yep. No, it ain't. You ain't to throw me down like that. I'm disability.
Okay.
I got head problem. Yep. You threw me down. Yep. You threw me down.
Mr. Gaillard, doing his best to comply, finds himself in a game of Simon Says gone horribly wrong. The irony is as thick as the tension in the air. Mr. Gaillard, with his disability, attempts to get down, but alas, Officer Duke seems to have skipped the chapter on empathy in his policing manual. Instead, he opts for a method that can only be described as foot-first diplomacy. It's as if he's channeling his inner martial artist, but instead of breaking boards, he's breaking protocol, and almost Mr. Gaillard. Meanwhile, Mr. Julian stands by, likely calculating the odds of this being a hidden camera show. Is Ashton Kutcher about to jump out? He might wonder. But no, this is no prank show. This is Officer Dukes in his element, turning a routine call into a scene so absurd it could give reality TV a run for its money. Officer Dukes' actions bring to mind those over-the-top movie cops who jump over cars and slide across hoods for no reason. Except there are no cars to jump over, just a surprised man trying to follow orders without becoming the star of an impromptu sidewalk slam. Alright, let's put on our legal lenses and take a gander at the use of force, or as I like to call it in this case, the misuse of force. According to the High and Mighty Supreme Court in Graham v. Connor, police use of force must pass the reasonableness test under the Fourth Amendment. The court laid out a nice little checklist: severity of the crime, immediate threat to safety, and whether the suspect is resisting or trying to flee. Now, let's see how Officer Duke's WWE-style takedown measures up. First up, severity of the crime. The call was about a man possibly having a gun, but let's be real. The only shots fired here were from Officer Duke's foot. Mr. Gaillard, with his hands raised higher than a student who knows the answer in class, didn't exactly scream imminent threat. So, on the Graham vs. Connor scorecard, we're already off to a rocky start. Mr. Gaillard's resistance? Trying to kneel down with the agility of a senior citizen, hardly a call for a foot push courtesy of Officer Dukes. Now, let's contrast this with Officer Duke's actions. Imagine if every time someone didn't move fast enough, we just nudged them along with our foot. Chaos, right? Well, that's the Officer Duke's way. Why use words when you can use feet? His interpretation of use of force was more use of foot, turning a standard arrest into a scene that even action movie directors would find a bit much. The aftermath for Mr. Gaillard was less. Walk it off. And more. Maybe see a doctor. While the details of his injuries weren't a headline act, let's just say he didn't leave the scene high-fiving and doing cartwheels. Imagine going out for a stroll and ending up with an impromptu chiropractic session courtesy of Officer Duke's foot. Not quite the kind of outdoor activity one hopes for. As for Officer Dukes, his grand finale in the Orangeburg Department of Public Safety was less standing ovation and more. Don't let the door hit you on the way out. That's right, he was fired faster than a popcorn kernel in hot oil. The department's use of force policy apparently didn't include a section on acceptable foot-to-back maneuvers. And let's not forget the cherry on top: criminal charges. Officer Dukes faced first-degree assault and battery charges, which could land him up to 10 years of contemplating his actions, but in a slightly less comfortable setting than his previous office. It's like a real-life game of Monopoly, and he just pulled the "go directly to jail" card. This tale of justice is like a fast food drive-thru: quick, satisfying, and leaving you wondering, what just happened? As we watch the wheels of justice turn, maybe not always smoothly but surely, we're reminded that sometimes, just sometimes, actions do have consequences. In the world of Officer Dukes, facts are apparently more flexible than a contortionist at a circus. His account of the incident played fast and loose with reality, turning his bodycam footage into an accidental comedy show. He had a gun, he claimed, despite Mr. Gaillard's hands being as empty as a politician's promises. It's like saying you caught a fish. Then there's the classic, "I said drop the gun," a line that mysteriously never made it into the actual footage. It's like Officer Dukes was narrating an entirely different encounter, perhaps one from an alternate universe where facts don't matter and feet are the primary tools of communication. Amidst this narrative jumble, enter Sergeant Polidor, the beacon of truth in a sea of alternative facts. While Dukes was busy rewriting history, Polidor was the one who kept it real. She deserves a medal, or at least a reality check award, for not buying into the Dukes drama and ensuring that the story stayed grounded in, well, reality. Sergeant Polidor stood out like a sore thumb, but in the best way possible. A thumb that's sore from pressing the truth button too hard. In the land of the blind, the one-eyed man is king, and in this case, Sergeant Polidor was wearing the crown, proving that integrity and honesty aren't just fancy words in the police manual, but actual traits to live by. Kudos to Sergeant Polidor for being the good cop in a bad cop movie. Now let's have a legal quip with Larry.
We have the Armstrong versus Village of Pinehurst case, where the court said, hey, even if someone isn't listening to you, you can't just go full Hulk Hogan on them. The level of force should match the resistance, they said. In the legal aftermath, our not-so-agile Officer Dukes faced first-degree assault and battery charges, a perfect recipe for a potential 10-year culinary experience in prison cuisine. Meanwhile, Mr. Gaillard, the unwilling star of this pavement drama, bagged a $650,000 settlement, a bittersweet victory. It's like winning a lottery you never wanted to enter, courtesy of Officer Duke's misguided footwork.